Hey everybody, my name's Ryan, and here at eTrailer we install, test fit, and review a lot of different parts. That way we can try to answer any questions those of you might have. And that's exactly what we're doing today on our 2014 Jeep Grand Cherokee. We're going to be taking a look at and showing you how to install the Roadmaster high-powered diode wiring kit. And this is a good example on how our wiring is going to work. As you can see, we have the left turn signal on our motorhome, and it's transferring it back here to the left side of our Jeep. But you're not only going to get those turn signals, your left and right, you're also going to get your brake lights as well as your tail lights. Now when it comes to wiring, the diode kit isn't the only option, but in my opinion it's the best option, especially for those of you that plan on flat towing a lot. And I say that because once it's installed, you're not even going to know it's there. It sits behind the tail light, and all you're going to have to do is plug into the front of your Jeep into the connector whenever you're ready to flat tow. That's really all there is to it. Compared to the other types of wiring like magnetic lighting, for example. That's going to require you to set it up every time you want to flat tow, so you're going to have to take your magnetic lights, stick them to the paint on your Jeep, run your wires all the way up to get it connected to the motorhome. Not to mention whenever you're ready to take your Jeep around town, you're going to have to undo all that. So the diode wiring makes it really convenient and easy every time you want to flat tow. And since it does use those diodes, it's actually going to protect your Jeep's factory wiring if a short or an electrical issue were to occur on the motorhome side. So it gives you a little peace of mind there, knowing you're not jeopardizing your Jeep's complicated electronics. Now, something I do want to mention, this kit is not going to come included with the connector plug or the cable. And that's because our customer actually already had those two items from a previous setup. But in many cases, a lot of tow bars that you purchase actually come with that plug as well as the cable. So that could be another scenario. However, if your tow bar doesn't come with those items or you don't already have them, not a huge deal. We offer many different kits that are the same as this that just have the plug and the cable included. So pretty convenient stuff there. With that being said, I talked about how easy it is to hook up. I'll go ahead and just pull this out. Whenever you're ready to get going and hit the road, you're just going to have to lift up on the cap, take your plug, run it into the front of the Jeep, and take the other end of your cable and put it into the back of your motorhome. And that's really all there is to it. So there's going to be a total of 5 main components needed to flat tow your Jeep Grand Cherokee down the road. The first one's going to be your base plate. Your base plate is going to provide you with a solid and reliable connection point. That way we can hook up our tow bar. Tow bar is going to be that other component. This is going to be the actual main link that connects the front of your Jeep to the back of your motorhome. Third main component is going to be your safety cables. Now these are there in the event of an unlikely disconnect. These are going to keep everything attached, your Jeep to the motorhome. Fourth main component is going to be tow bar wiring. So this wiring is going to transfer the lighting functions from the back of your motorhome to the back of your Jeep, keeping you not only safe but legal. And last but not least is our braking system. The braking system is going to apply the brakes in the Jeep whenever you hit the brakes in your motorhome. That's going to help bring you to a more safe and predictable stop. So at the end of the day, a really reliable, easy to use wiring kit that's going to get the job done. Now as far as the installation goes, it's really not too bad. I will say it does take a little bit of time running your wires from the front here to the back. And I'd say probably the trickiest part is getting the taillights back in, because you don't have a ton of space and those diodes take up a little bit of room. So what you're going to have to do is just kind of carefully feel around, make sure the diodes are tucked in there, and pop the taillights back in. So as long as you're patient, it's really not too bad. Speaking of which, let's go ahead and do that together now. To begin our installation, we're going to be here at the front of our Jeep. Now, you probably noticed our fascia is removed, and that's because we're doing our wiring at the same time that we did our base plate, because we have a lot more room to work. Just wanted to mention that. And the first thing we're going to need to do is take one end of our wiring and hook it up to our plug. Now the plug isn't included with the kit, and that's because our customer, their tow bar actually came with the plug. If you need a plug, you can find them right here at eTrailer. With that being said, I'm going to take the little rubber dust cap that comes with the plug, slide that over one end of our wiring. Then we need to split these wires. So I'll carefully just take a pair of snips and cut in between them. Then you can kind of pull these apart a few inches. Once we have them pulled apart, what I like to do is maybe cut off maybe about a ½ inch from each one, because sometimes the wires can get a little bit frayed, like you can see with this yellow one. So I'll just clean that up. And then we're going to strip back the insulation. We'll do that for all 4 of these wires. So now if we look at the back of our connector plug, we're going to have some set screws, and you want to back those set screws out just enough to get our wire in, but not enough to actually pull them out, because they can be kind of tricky to get back in. But we're going to be using 4 out of the 6 terminals. So we'll be using this one, which is labeled TM. For taillights, our brown wire will go to it. This one here is labeled GD for ground, so our white wire will go to that one. This terminal here, which is labeled LT for left turn, so our yellow wire will go to it. And this one here, which is labeled RT for right turn, so our green wire will go to that. So we'll just start with TM, taillights, which is brown. So that wire just slides into the terminal. Kind of hold it in place, and then just snug up that set screw. That'll make sure everything stays connected. So I'll just repeat that process for our corresponding wires. And this is what our wiring looks like once it's all plugged in to the back of the connector. So once that's done, you take your rubber dust cap, slide that over it, and then I'm just going to mount up our bracket. Now our base plate came included with a bracket, and many times it does. However, if yours didn't and you need a bracket, you can find them right here at eTrailer. Now we can start to route our wiring, which I have done, towards the back of our Jeep. So there's where it comes out of the back of the plug, and it comes up through here. When you're routing this, be sure to avoid any hotter moving parts. And I just use some zip ties every now and again to keep it secure. But I just made a straight shot through this opening here. So it's going to come through that opening, through that straight shot here, just on this side of our air box. And then I just routed it behind our air box and in front of our shock tower. Now, if you're doing a braking system that requires you to tap into your diode wiring, not a bad idea to leave a little extra length. That way it'd be easier to work with. So that's what this extra little bundle here is for. Then I simply just pushed it through one of these little slots here where some factory lines go through. That's going to go into this opening, and if you look down at the very bottom there, you can see where the wiring goes through a grommet. Grommet may or may not have a factory hole in it. Ours did not, so I just used a knife and cut out a small opening down there. And here's what that grommet looks like, where our wiring goes through it. So now underneath our Jeep, here's where our wiring came down. And I just zip tied it to this brace here. Now at this point, what I'm going to do is separate our white wire from the other 3. That way we can ground it to the body of our vehicle. So I started to kind of split it. I'll kind of pull it up. And give me a little extra to work with. I think I'm going to go right here in this area. So I'll cut that. You want to hold on to the extra remaining white wire because you're probably going to need to use it later. We're going to strip back the insulation. I'm going to crimp on the included ring terminal. So slide that over. Get our crimps and make that connection. Whenever you ground this out, you want to make sure you're on clean, solid metal. So this is a perfect spot, kind of up and out of the way. We're going to do that using the included self-tapping tech screw. So we'll run that through. Get our tool and run that into the body. So I continue to route my wiring towards the back, and I just ran it underneath the body of our vehicle and attached it along the way using some zip ties. So we just have a nice straight shot pretty much all the way back. Right here, I kind of drape the wire up and over our fuel line. Continues up. And it's a little tricky to see, but it'll go up and over our subframe. So you can kind of see where it comes out here. You want to make sure to keep it zip tied away from your spring and any other moving parts. So focus on that through here. But it just continues up and over the back part of our subframe, where it comes out right here. Now what I've done is just separated our green wire and ran that to the passenger side, but we'll focus on our yellow and brown one first. Once I got to this location, I just kind of let our wire hang down for now. As I mentioned, the green one got routed over towards the passenger side. So I just shot this straight over here and just secured it up along through here. And again, once I got to this point, we can just kind of let our wire hang down for now. Now here at the back of our Jeep, you want to open up your hatch, and what we need to do is remove our tail lights. So these are going to be held in place. We're going to have two push pin style fasteners. So you can take a trim tool or a flathead screwdriver, and you're just going to pry underneath the head of it and work the whole thing out. Do that same thing for this one here. Once we have those out, we should be able to grab our taillight, kind of work it from side to side. And hopefully get it to pop out. Sometimes these can get stuck a little bit, so you might have to work it a little more to get it removed. So once we pull it out, you can see that's what was kind of getting hung up, these little alignment pins here, and that's why we were kind of working it to free them. With that being said, we can go ahead and disconnect everything. So they have 3 plugs, and they're all going to work the same. This one may be easier to actually just remove the bulb. It's a quarter turn, so you'll just rotate it a quarter turn. These two, we should be able to just unplug those. So you're going to pull up on that red tab, push down in the center, and that will allow it to disconnect. And same deal for that one. So go ahead and set my tail light off to the side and repeat the same process over on the other side of our Jeep. So I went ahead and just kind of peeled away the tape that was covering our wiring, and I tested the wires to find the tail light function as well as the brake light function. And what I came up with, this plug here, it's the larger plug. This is going to be our brake light function, the wire coming out of it, and that wire color is white and light orange. So we'll be using this one. Our tail light function is going to use a smaller plug here, and the wire that we'll be using is the white wire with the gray stripe. So with that being said, we're just going to kind of get these ready, and we're going to cut the wire about in half, strip back the ends of the insulation. Same thing for this one here. And what we're going to do is take the blue Spade terminals that come with the kit and put that on each end of the wire that we strip back. So I'll just slide over. And we'll crimp it down. So I'll do that for all 3 remaining ends. So now at this point we can get our wiring into our taillight pocket where we can get it all hooked up. So what I've done is just drop down a piece of nylon air tubing, and just through the opening, it comes out the bottom. And I taped on our yellow and brown wire, but then I also grabbed that remaining white wire that we had left over and tape that onto our pull wire as well. So once we have that all connected, we should be able to just grab our pull wire and feed everything up into the tail light pocket where we can get it all connected. So what I've done is kind of trimmed off that excess wire and strip back the ends on the insulation. We're going to take our yellow wire and crimp on a blue Spade terminal. We're going to do something a little different with the brown and white wire. With these, we're going to actually twist those together. So make sure they're nice and tight. That's a good connection. And we're going to grab the yellow Spade terminal out of the kit. We'll slide that on and get it crimped. Once that's connected, we can take our diodes and start to get them hooked up. So we'll start with the big plug, which will be our stop and turn function. So the side closest to the plug, we're going to take our diode and put that on the single terminal that's labeled out. We'll plug that into the other end of our factory wire. We'll put that on the side of the diode that says in with 2 terminals. And we'll grab our new yellow wire and connect it to that diode. Just like that. We'll grab our other diode. And close to the connector, go to that single out terminal. Other end of the factory wire, plug into one of the end terminals. And we'll grab our white and brown wire and connect it there. Now that we have our diodes hooked up, we can reinstall our tail light. So we'll put that back in, rotate it a 1/4 turn, and just plug our connectors back together. So this taillight pocket is relatively tight. The back of the diodes do have some sticky tape that you can use to secure them, but with this being so tight, I don't think it's really going to do any good. So I'm just going to try to line these diodes up as best I can here off to the side. And I think the taillight will kind of sandwich them and keep them from bouncing around. I'll get them going. and then just reinstall our taillight the opposite way that we removed it. So now back underneath the vehicle, we need to route the other end of our white wire to the passenger side. So you can see where it comes down from the driver's side. And I just kind of wrapped it along through here. Zip tied it to some of this factory wiring. Brought it along through here, and right here is where I also started to route our green wire up too. If you recall, we just kind of had it setting right here. So I did the same thing that we did on the other side. I dropped down a pull wire where it came out here, connected our wires to it, went back to the taillight pocket and pulled them up. Now here in the passenger side taillight pocket, you can see our green and white wire. I ran up and I connected everything to our diodes the same exact way that we did the other side. There is a minor difference. So the big connector plug, that's going to be for a stop and turn. So our green wire fed into that, and the color of that factory wire that we tapped into is white and light brown. The smaller plug, that's for our taillight signal. The factory color wire is white with a orange stripe, and so we plugged our new white wire into it. That being said, we can plug our taillight back in and reinstall it the same way that we removed it. Now that we have everything hooked up, it's a good idea to test our wiring to make sure that it's functioning properly. So I'll go ahead and turn on my taillights. Let's try our left turn, our right turn, and our brake lights. And that'll finish up our look at and our installation of the Roadmaster high-powered diode wiring kit on our 2014 Jeep Grand Cherokee.